Reddit is not happy about a recent article I wrote talking about the latest changes for the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, which removes rewarding players for taking erotic photos of female characters. That's right, Reddit is not happy that voyeurism is not being rewarded in the game anymore. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Joining me to discuss this article and the reactions to it is my good friend, John Delarose. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, John. Life is good. Happy to be here. How are you?
Glad to see you. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Let's just get right into this here. So wrote this article up over at thatparkplace.com. I will have the link in the description below for you guys to check out. But basically what is happening here, we have this report from Famitsu, Japanese website, indicating that the player character Frank West will no longer be able to earn prestige points by taking voyeuristic photos. They do still have this prestige points game mechanic in it when you can take photos specifically of like the zombies, etc. And you can get basically experience these prestige points to level up your character. However, you will not be getting them for these erotic voyeuristic photos that you could in the original game. The Famitsu article says this: the work does not have the evaluation point erotica that existed in the original version. And then if you want to see what that looks like, there is a video here of this YouTuber doing that. And you can see obviously just from his thumbnail of kind of what those photos look like, panty shots, etc., shots of like bare chest. And so I went through this whole article here explaining why this is actually a good thing, because they are actually trying to reward you for doing something bad. And that is not how we want to operate. You shouldn't be getting rewarded for doing evil actions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And just on a basic level, I mean, obviously we're going to come at this from a Christian perspective where, I mean, it's just gross, right? And something that's very much a sinful behavior that you don't want to engage in. But just coming at it from like a standard perspective of like, outside of that, it's just tacky and weird anyway. It's like you're looking at a 3D object, fake woman, like drooling after it. Okay. It's like, why do you want to be rewarded for that anyway? Get your dopamine hits off of that? I mean, at that point, somebody should really get off their screen, go outside, work out, eat healthy, try to do something different with their lives, honestly.
Can't disagree with that. But so I think I gave a much more heady, I guess, argument where which is kind of how I do, right? So I obviously cited the Gospel of Matthew here. It says, "But I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Clearly, this is wrong." And then I also cite Tom Nash at Catholic.com. He says, "One wants to avoid I'm going to butcher this, scrupulosity in such matters, but also moral laxity, as fantasy is sometimes incorrectly argued as harming no one. Such fantasizing harms first the person who engages in it, as related impure thoughts undermine their relationship with God while attaching them to an extent or another, a form of sexual vice." And then there's this whole document called Inter Mirifica, which talks specifically about how different mediums should be used to promote the common good. All who, of their own free choice, make use of these media of communications as readers, viewers, or listeners have special obligations. I think obviously you can apply gamers into that as well. For a proper choice demands that they fully favor those presentations that are outstanding for their moral goodness, their knowledge, and their artistic or technical merit. They ought, however, to avoid those that may be a cause or occasion of spiritual harm to themselves, or that can lead others into danger through base example, or that hinder desirable presentations and promote those that are evil. Clearly, in this case, it was promoting an evil presentation with this voyeurism. Yes. To patronize such presentations in most instances would merely reward those who use these media only for profit. It goes on to say this: the principal moral responsibility for the proper use of the media of social communication falls on newsmen, writers, actors, designers, producers, displayers, distributors, operators, and sellers. I think we can put game developers in there as well as critics and all others who play any part in the production and transmission of mass presentations. It is quite evident what gravely important responsibilities they have in the present day when they are in a position to lead the human race to good or to evil by informing or arousing mankind. Thus, they must adjust their economic, political, or artistic and technical aspects so as never to oppose the common good. So there is nuance in this, though, right? There is nuance to this, right? The document says this: the narration, description, or portrayal of moral evil, even through the media of social communication, can indeed serve to bring about a deeper knowledge and study of humanity, and with the aid of appropriately heightened dramatic effects, can reveal and glorify the grand dimensions of truth and goodness. So they're still clearly rewarding this behavior. They're not showing it as a negative. I don't think I would be writing this article if they had changed the mechanic from if you actually took the pictures, you got negative PP points, or there was some kind of negative aspect that took place to your character where it was clearly showing that what you're doing is indeed wrong. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty clear cut case right here, and it's stated very, very well, and in a very much deeper philosophical way than what I was saying. But I was also just trying to just be like, take a step back from the theological elements of this, and also take a step back from like trying to look at this from that deep level, and just even on the surface level, it's just a thing that is tacky for a video game to want to go through. And so this basically says the exact same thing, but much more eloquently. Yes.
So, and then obviously I cite our good friend, both of us, Brian Niemeyer, where he talks about how they use this idea to the death cult. He describes it as the death cult morality to basically indoctrinate people into the death cult. And he says, to understand this method, one need only understand the archetypal trope of the protagonist. This is the character who drives the story by setting out on a quest to achieve a concrete goal against opposition. Hollywood learned through long trial and error to make the protagonist as likable and relatable to audiences as possible. The idea is to make audiences identify with the hero. And he then reiterates this: to bring movie audiences around to your way of thinking, show characters they like being successful by acting in line with your moral standard. Obviously, he's describing in that sense how to oppose what the Hollywood death cult has been doing. We should be showing people how to kind of live that Christian life, have that Christian morality, and you want to show heroes doing that. So he explains that Hollywood has done this to lead them into this kind of death cult mentality. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. They make this character, Frank West, the protagonist. They're having him do these voyeuristic activities, and they want you to relate to that so you can actually potentially have that affect how you operate outside of the video game.
Absolutely. It does. And a lot of people, especially online, don't like to admit that this is the case at this point. And they say, they try to hearken it back to the video games don't cause violence, etc. From the 90s, because they just don't want to admit that. But you do. It is darkness in, darkness out. And we are instructed to only, put good things into our brains and into our minds and into our souls. And so this would follow directly from that 100%.
Yeah, it's kind of like I think most people will agree that what you eat, if you're going to go out and eat a bunch of donuts every single day, your body's going to change and probably start looking like a donut.
That's right.
It's not going to look pretty good. And it's the same thing with your mind, right? If you are eating or if you're consuming a bunch of junk, your mind is going to start turning into junk.
That's correct.
So obviously I go on and say this: clearly the game was promoting a moral standard of modesty and lewdness and wanted players to embrace that same standard. Did so by rewarding them for taking the erotic photos. Given players are no longer being rewarded through this mechanic, it can only be seen as something good and is aligned with the promotion of the common good. And then I go through and have like a really good explanation here on kind of combating this idea that I think a lot of people have about this free speech absolutism idea, where they think that to oppose censorship in all cases is some kind of principle, rather than seeing censorship as a tool to be used to either oppose the common good or promote the common good. And I think it's very clear that censorship is indeed a tool. It's not like this principle that you should always oppose it. I think the most, if you go down through this kind of logical trail that absolute free speech takes you, it's like, you would be okay with showing all kinds of degenerate, disgusting things in children's movies. And I don't think any kind of rational or even just sane person would think that is okay.
No, not at all. I mean, there's a few, extreme libertarians who are like, well, it's up to the individual parent to decide that, But you know, those are pretty extreme people who you know, just completely ignore the realities of life to try to stick up for their political philosophies. Unfortunately, but overall, yes, you're correct. Like there are obviously instances, and you know they always say you know you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's something very true, and you shouldn't. And you shouldn't just have the quote right to do that either, because it interferes with other people's you know lives in a bad way, and this follows down the line. So, at what point do you actually try to create a moral and just society and moral and just video game and etc. And you know that's the ongoing debate. Obviously, I think life would be better, and we all think life would be better if we pushed our society towards a more Christian civilized society. And we used to have that here in America. And if you look at the content that got uncensored ever since really the People versus Larry Flint, right? That's where it all started. Once that all started, everything started to go downhill. Our society started to degrade, and you could see the results of it. Evil begets evil.
And you are actually doing this, right? You are creating stories that are trying to lead people to the common good, lead people to do things. You have a Kickstarter up right here, The Hidden Emperor and Ayla Rin sci-fi graphic novel. You've already raised almost $27,000, doing a really good job here. Still have over a month to go from 345 backers. Can you tell us a little bit about this here?
Yeah, so I'm basically creating my own stuff right here, almost 27K. Wow. And this is my response to Star Wars, Warhammer 40K, just the wokeness that's been done on those sort of properties. I decided to create a graphic novel that actually shows what real heroism is. And we have a female lead who is actually a good character and doesn't follow all the tropes of the current year nonsense. Because I wanted to show people basically how it could be done in a good way. She's a nationalist. She has strong morals. She is working for convictions for the betterment of humanity. And that's the type of heroic journey I want to present in fiction. So there's a lot of fun, lots of action, adventure. It's classic science fiction in any sort of way you slice it. You'll love it if you like the classic stuff. And thanks, guys, for supporting this. And thanks, John, for bringing this up and allowing me to share it with your audience.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I read the first book. I think it's John's best work over mine. So I'm really looking forward to this one. As you saw, I did back it already. You can see right there. You've pledged $55. So I am a backer. I do put my money. I do put my money where my mouth is. So I know at the beginning of this video, we did say we were going to get to the people on Reddit who were coming after me. And there are a lot of people. And
here's the good stuff.
Yeah, here's the good stuff. This is Kotaku in action. I have been probably following this subreddit and participating in this subreddit for almost a decade now. Probably, maybe not a decade, at least over half a decade. Probably 2017, 2018. So seven, 8 years there, around there. And so I've actually been highly involved in this subreddit, and the people here are not happy with me at all over this article that we just went through. And here is what their headline reads. That Park Place's John F. Trent mentions that censorship is actually good and comes out endorsing it in his reporting about Capcom's Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster because the gameplay mechanic opposed the common good. So that headline is a lie already, right? I don't think that censorship is good. I think censorship is a tool, which we just kind of went over, right? It can be used for good or bad. It is not something that is good or bad inherently. I do not believe that. So they're lying about what I believe, which I think is very clear in the article. I don't know if this person didn't understand it, but anyways, it gets really bad here. A good reminder that his kind are only fair weather allies and will stab you in the back given the chance, or even join the progressives if they can find common ground in censoring something they both agree on. So, I mean, look at this rhetoric. This is the guy who posted this. Absolutely insane stuff right here over the fact that I don't think you should be rewarded for voyeurism in the game. Like, I'm not saying get rid of the mechanic. I actually, if you go back and you go through the comments on the actual article, someone posits that you should get this negative PP point mechanic. And I think that's actually fine because it's showing that this is wrong. But these people are just going crazy here. I am now, I'm a fair weather ally that's going to stab him in the back, despite, if you actually look at this guy's account, his account was created in 2019. I've been part of this forum for longer than his account was created.
I'm shadow banned on all of Reddit, so I cannot post anywhere. So I'm more based. I'll pull out that card.
But what are your thoughts on kind of what this guy's saying here?
This is the typical, like, doesn't read the whole article and is reacting to the headline in a way that paints it way different than you actually said. This happens a lot, and you get this on. We're on YouTube. This happens all the time too. You put the thumbnail up, and people react to the. I've sometimes actually put up a thumbnail that was really off topic to what was actually in the video, just to see what the comments would be. And it always is about the thumbnail, and a lot of people just don't even watch the videos, and that's basically what we got right here. Yeah.
It goes on here. I knew I was right to be skeptical about this guy. He's often using Christian teachings to support his arguments. The last time another guy, like, why are you skeptical that I'm using Christian teachings? So this shouldn't be anything that you should be surprising, right? You're admitting that I include that in my articles. The last time another guy and me pointed that out and questioned it, we got downvoted into oblivion. But people got to realize that religious conservatives are not your friends on matters concerning freedom of expression. So I think this is one of the big issues that we face here. There's so many people that, and I'll admit that I was one of them. I was one of them a couple of years ago. You're a slave, you're a mental slave to liberalism. This idea that you should be able to do whatever you want, as much as you want, as long as you're not, quote unquote, harming someone. And I think you kind of touched on this earlier. Right. And that's not the case at all. You can harm yourself, and we should be opposed to people harming themselves, whether that is physical or mental or spiritual. You can obviously significantly harm people when it comes to their spirituality or their emotions or their mental state as well, through art. We see this. I mean, you talk about this all the time with the comics and how they're literally using it's pornography in these comics to try and indoctrinate children.
Right.
Like that is wrong, and it should be opposed. But when you go down this liberal rabbit hole, the logical conclusion is that that's okay, and it's not. And that's why we are actually opposing this stuff. We have the reasons why we oppose this stuff. There is a reason why we oppose the gay agenda. There is a reason why we oppose transgender ideology. We can actually talk about that and elucidate that.
That's correct. And, there's plenty of rules out there against self-harm in society as well. I mean, we have whole agencies and all this set up to try to prevent people Minecrafting themselves and the like. And if that, was totally just like, cool, let's just let people do it, they would. But, it'd be a tragic and terrible thing. So we don't. It's pretty obvious. But the thing is, a lot of these people just like are addicted to porn at the end of the day. And I really just think that's where all this is coming from. That it's just a backlash from addiction. When you tell somebody, John's, I ain't a perfect guy myself. And John's come to me before and been like, John, you swear way too much. Right. And, my first instinct of that, when you get somebody talking to you like that, when you're addicted to that kind of behavior is F you, John. Right. But then you realize like, well, wait a minute. Like I shouldn't do that to John because he's my buddy. That's not okay. And more than that, like it is crass and bad. Like I really shouldn't. John's right. And it takes a lot. And it takes a lot of self-reflection and effort and work to actually admit that somebody is right and that you're addicted to something. And that's something that a lot of people discount, especially in online discussions.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Obviously, I'm guilty of that myself. I have not of watching pornography. I don't do that anymore at all. But I think I'm guilty of kind of having that knee-jerk reaction when someone like kind of is like, "Hey, what you're doing is wrong," and you're just like, "No, I'm right," because your ego is so prominent at that point. Your pride is like so elevated. Like, how dare you tell me that I'm wrong? And you kind of want to like, you get that flight or flight mode. And obviously I go into kind of fight mode usually. So, but yeah, it does take a lot. And I do think where you're coming from here is exactly where a lot of this is coming from. We can go through some more here. This guy says, I still remember Jack Thompson before the social justice warriors were the moral justice warriors. They got their crap kicked in, but they aren't gone. They're just waiting. So trying to compare me to Jack Thompson. Again, Jack Thompson, I'm not super familiar with it. I know he was like campaigning against Grand Theft Auto. I actually have a different perspective on that. Grand Theft Auto does have in-game mechanics that show that what you are doing is wrong, that the crimes you're committing are indeed wrong. Clearly, you can get rewarded for them just like you can in real life. Gangsters make lots of money selling their drugs, et cetera, but there are clear consequences. The police come after you when you commit crimes, etc. Like, so there's clear mechanics that show that what these players are doing when they commit crimes like this are indeed wrong. And I think that's like the difference, that I can see that and see that this is being shown as obviously what you're doing is indeed wrong. Well, maybe there should be more of that. I don't know. Maybe the police should be even more proactive. Maybe there should be like feds coming in and like really like raiding you and making it a little bit more difficult. But what do you kind of make of this?
It's up to the video game maker here. Obviously, we're not even to the point where we're talking about let's put in federal legislation of this kind of stuff. I mean, that's such a leap in steps that it's silly. But again, it just goes to show how unhinged people can be on the internet. Yeah.
So we got this person here saying, I've been downvoted here before for mentioning it. I suspect it was from interlopers browsing here because of the Assassin's Creed Yasuke controversy. It was new at the time. People that lived through the 80s and 90s, right-wing Christian conservative, pushed to censor rock and roll and rap music, violent video games, so-called shock jock, radio, a la Howard Stern, television movies. They know what these people are about, and their push to censorship lines up almost entirely with the neo-left-wing liberal censorship push of the past 10 or so years. It is the same censorship wearing different clothing, except last time there was no internet to skew popular sentiment and make it seem like the majority is actually pro-censorship. I mean, the common good, are we effing children? They are policing what you can put into your ear holes and eye holes, and that is exactly what the Christian fundamentalists of 30 years ago were attempting to do, control you. Last time it was because the Bible says so. This time it's progressive. So this is something that we see all the time here. They call it the horseshoe theory. If you happen to be right-wing and Christian, you are just the same as the woke leftists. And this is just utterly ridiculous. And when you actually think about it for even like 30 seconds, it just kind of falls apart and doesn't make sense whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, it's somebody who's really working hard, and I don't understand this logic either, trying to tie what the right does to what the left does, and try to make that connection, because it's completely absurd. And whenever I see that kind of argument, I just kind of back away, because it usually means the person's completely low IQ, and that's all I could think.
Yeah, I mean, so just to kind of break down this argument just a little bit, obviously we oppose like woke leftists and what they are trying to do, because what they're trying to do is indeed immoral. And it's the same principle here. We're looking at this voyeurism, and we see that this is indeed wrong, and you should not be trying to show it as a positive. Those are clear distinctions, whereas you look at the woke leftists, they don't view things from the objective truth that we look at things. They don't view things from this objective right and wrong. They look at things from this oppression hierarchy, and it's like, who is being the most oppressed? They're obviously the biggest victim, so whatever is oppressing them is evil and wrong. And that's how they dictate their warped sense of morality. And those are two very different ways of looking at things.
That's right.
There is no horseshoe at all. Like it doesn't exist. So, I mean, we can go through some more of these here, but I think those are like kind of the biggest ones. Here's another one that says, I mean, I'm a religious conservative Catholic. And while let's skip that one. Because I think I misunderstood what he was actually saying, because I actually responded to him earlier. Again, you atheists, agnostics, anti-theists, I guess, are conflating a lot of different groups of people that don't really share a lot of the same values. Besides Christ is King, the pro-censorship crowd in Christian circles is the big established denoms in America, like the evangelicals or Baptists, and even then, it's not all of them. I'm a metalhead and an adult convert Catholic, which is a fine line to walk, but I just merely don't listen to things that are blatantly sacrilegious, even if they are from bands I like. The vast majority of American Christians are perfectly content to debate and ridicule you. Even someone like Matt Walsh, who is pro-censorship, at least personally, makes his cheddar by exposing extremists through comedy and dialogue. What is a woman, and am I racist? wouldn't be possible in a censored right-wing society. And I think that's kind of what you were talking about too, when they were making this comparison that I'm Jack Thompson and I'm trying to like enact federal legislation,
Right.
instead of just saying like this stuff is what the developer did was the right choice. Like there is a very distinction there.
That's right. There's a huge distinction, and yeah. But all you can do is keep going forward, keep speaking the truth, and the truth is going to trigger a subset of people. But we just can't worry about that because we have a higher calling than to mince words just to be popular.
That is exactly right. And that's what we are going to continue to do here at the Trump Report. We're going to continue to speak the truth, no matter what. That is kind of the tagline that I use it after the end of every video. So I fully expected to get this flack, and I did indeed get it. So, but that is not going to deter me from continuing to preach the truth of Jesus Christ. And I know John De La Rose will do the same as well over on his channel, because we are both culture warriors, the real deal.
That's right.
Where can people find you here on, where can people find you, John?
Great. I got my own YouTube channel. It's just my name, John De La Rose, and I'll try to leave a comment on the video here so you guys can say hi to me as well. I'm also on Twitter at John De La Rose, and I've got my own website, delarose.com, where I got a bunch of my books, and you can search my name on Amazon. And of course, our Kickstarter, The Hidden Emperor, is up right now. Thank you for having me, John, and thank you guys who are supporting our alternative work to mainstream degeneracy. Appreciate it.
Love having you here. Looking forward to having you back very soon.
Thanks, John.